This
Constrain
conference will
yourself.
now be recorded.
Okay, good. All right. So as we continue, once again, a thank you to NJOP, National Jewish Outreach Program. And let me pull it up over here for myself. Yes, and more locally, so this was sponsored by the Bruss family in memory of Jeff's and Gary's father, Percy Bruss. It's not.
It's my grandfather.
Yeah, one second. Yes. Yes. And Carol. Good. I knew it was there. I just trying to pull all the pieces together. Okay, so in memory of your grandfather.
Thank you.
Good.
I was planning to come anyway, and then I just saw the email that it was
Even
his
better.
honor, so extra special.
Okay, good. All right. So as we continue, so the issue over here last week was Israel and Judaism, right? And the earliest roots, we began with Lech Lecha. The first command that God gave to Abraham was to go to the land of Israel. And now the focus on this week is Israel and the Jews. Okay, so we begin with a brief review of 3,000 years of history. Now, just right away, that gives you a sense, right? You know, with all of the disinformation, 1948, colonialists, all this nonsense. So let's look at 3,000 years of history. I think it was Menachem Begin. I think it was, oh no, maybe, I forget who it was. Maybe it was the Israeli, I forget who it was.
Either way, neither one of them is old enough.
Yeah, no, they weren't 3,000 years ago. But they said in the British Parliament before, when London was a muddy field and Paris was a muddy field, we had our temple built in Jerusalem, right? So don't you tell us about where we belong. I have to find that. It was such a powerful statement that was made. I have to find the exact quote and who said it. Okay, so let's go quickly through this because I don't want to spend all the time on this, but we'll go quickly through, right? BCE, before the Common Era. I say before the Common Error, spelled ERROR, but either way, right? 17th century BCE, patriarchs, right? Settled in the land of Israel. Famine forces Israelites to migrate to Egypt, right? That's mentioned before. The first written command, spoken command that God, the first spoken communication of God to Abraham was go to the land of Israel. There was a famine, and therefore he went down to Egypt. 13th century, let's zoom forward 400 years. Exodus from Egypt. Moses leads Israel from Egypt, followed by 40 years wandering in the desert. Torah, including 10 Commandments, received at Mount Sinai. Okay, 13th to 12th century, right? Once we're there in the land of Israel, we settled the land of Israel. Middle, late Bronze Age, interchange period. Quite honestly, I don't know what the interchange period is. I guess going from the middle to the late of the Bronze Age, but I don't really know what that means. But I'll just read interchange period. 1020 BCE, Jewish monarchy established, Saul the first king. Okay, so now we're 2,000 years post, 1,000 years prior. 3,000 years ago is when the first Jewish monarchy was established in the land of Israel. That was King Saul. Then David rules from Hebron first 8 years. Jerusalem is declared the capital, again going back 3,000 years. 960, first temple built by King Solomon, national spiritual center of the Jewish people, built in Jerusalem by King Solomon. Divided kingdom, Judea in the south, Israel in the north. That took place with Solomon's son took over. 722, Israel crushed by the Assyrians, 10 tribes exiled, the 10 lost tribes. We have many groups around the world today claiming to be the tribes of Israel, and some of them might very well be. Right? Certainly, we view the Ethiopian Jewry as excellent candidates as having been fully part of Israel and of the lost tribes. 586 again BCE, Judea conquered by Babylonia, Jerusalem, first temple destroyed, most Jews exiled to Babylon, to Bavel. Galut Bavel, the exile to Bavel. Many Jews returned from Bavel, temple rebuilt under Ezra and Nehemiah, the second temple. Land conquered by Alexander the Great, Hellenistic rule. Then we have Hanukkah, 166 BCE, Maccabean, Hashmonaim revolt against the rule due to restriction on practice of Judaism and the desecration of the temple. Jewish independence under Hashmonaim, that was with the miracle of Hanukkah and the victory in battle. Jerusalem conquered by Roman general Pompey. Now we enter into the years that we are at, right? We're 2025. Well, going back quite a bit, 4 CE to 37, right? Okay, BCE to 4 CE. Herod, Roman vassal king, rules Israel. Temple in Jerusalem refurbished and renovated. We go to the Kotel and we see the stones, right? So you'll notice there's a very difference in the different stones at different levels. And a tour guide will point out, oh, that's the Herodian level stones that were put on over there. 66, Jewish revolt against the Romans, unsuccessful. Destruction of Jerusalem and Second Temple, the year 70 on our calendar. Last stand of Jews at Masada. Of course, people go to Israel. One of the tourist places you go to is Masada. The Jews had a last stand against the Romans there, and the excavations show they had a mikveh up there. They had all these full Jewish life up there. Bar Kokhba, uprising against Rome, and that really has what to do with our Sphira today. That was the uprising against Rome. Rabbi Akiva, right? The reason that we are mourning or have certain aspects of Avelut, of mourning during these days of Sphira, is the death of Rabbi Akiva's students. Bar Kokhba, Rabbi Akiva thought that he was or could have been the Mashiach. But for Mashiach, we needed to have the proper physical leadership and righteousness, and also the proper spiritual leadership and righteousness. His students were not of the level. Bar Kokhba was not of the level, and that was a failed uprising. Okay. Yes, Reb Shlomo.
Our tefillah, as we do it these days, how long does that date back? And
Okay, so our tefillot, as we do it today, first of all, realize a mistake that is often made is that prayer is there because we no longer have the temple and sacrifice. That is incorrect. Prayer is an independent mitzvah besides sacrifice. Our codified, set 3 times a day, what is it that we say, tefillah? That was established as we have it today at the time, at the start of the Second Temple. So that will go back, according to this Second Temple, about 500 BCE. Okay, so going back still about 2,500 years. The reason that was instituted is that was the time when the period of prophecy was coming to a close. And therefore, people would no longer be able to compose their own meaningful tefillot that would get up to the point in heaven where it needed to get to. And therefore, the men of the Great Assembly, including prophets, including Mordechai of Purim fame, established the tefillah, the prayers, as we have it today. And that way, right, it's kind of like, So that the prayer is the airplane that gets us up. If I want to fly, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not the engineer who could build a plane. But once they've built it, I can fly that plane. So too, they constructed these tefillot for us at that point. Rav Soloveitchik says very, very beautifully that I said the reason why it was instituted at that time is because with the close of prophecy, we would no longer be able to compose our own meaningful tefillot. He has a different or an additional take on it, and that is with the close of prophecy, so God would no longer be directly speaking to us, but we were not going to allow the conversation to stop. And therefore it was instituted 3 times a day that we speak to him. So to make sure that the lines of communication remain open. Okay. Then, so now we are already in the present galut, right? From the year 70, we are in the present exile that we are at. But what was going on, right, with Israel and the Jews? Well, the year 210, codification of Jewish oral law. The Mishnah was completed. That was in northern Israel. We then had the Byzantine rule, the year 390. The first commentary on the Mishnah, which was the Jerusalem, not the Babylonian, Jerusalem Talmud, was completed. 614, Persian invasion, followed by Arab rule. And then 691, on the temple site, the Dome of the Rock Mosque is built by Caliph Abd el-Malik. Okay, so on the ruins of our temple, that is where the mosque was built. Okay, 400 years later, Crusader domination, along with Aliyah from France and Spain, including Yehuda Halevi, the Balei Tosfot, and the Ramban, Nachmanides. Right, you go visit Israel now. You go to the old city. They have restored the Ramban Shul. It had been blown up by the Jordanians once they in 1948, when they took over the old city, and Jews were not allowed to visit the Temple Mount, not allowed to visit even the Kotel. There was no Kotel Plaza as it is today. It was a wall. They used to dump garbage over there. And recently, meaning within the past 5-10 years, it was rebuilt. That there used to just be this arch, this all that remained of it when you visit the old city. Now they have actually rebuilt that. Then the Mamluk rule, that was accompanied by Aliyah from Spain. The Ottoman rule, the Ottomans ruled for 400 years. Influx of Jews after expulsion from Spain and Portugal. So Jews from all over the world, when they are able to come to the land of Israel, they make their way there. 1600, Sfat becomes a major center for Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, and the greats there, Moshe Cordovero, Rav Luria, right, Arizal, Shlomo Alkabatz, who was the composer of the Lecha Dodi that we sing every Friday night. 1564, Code of Jewish Law, written by Yosef Karo in Sfat. 1860. Now, this is still under the Ottoman rule, and that is why Turkey, until today, tries to reassert its control over the land because it was wrongly taken from them, right, in their loss in World War I, and given to the British. We'll soon see about that. Now, I mentioned last week, it's important to just know this fact. The Ottomans ruled it, but it was a backwater for them. That was not their capital. That was not their main play. On the contrary, they pillaged the country of the trees that were there, that the JNF is still working today to replant. They pillaged in order to get the wood for their different railroads that they were building. Right? The Romans were there. All these who were there, for them, it was never their main city. The only one who had their capital city in Jerusalem and Israel as their main place was the Jewish people, starting with Saul and then going through David and all the kings that followed. Okay. 1860, first neighborhood built outside Jerusalem's walls. 1882, first Aliyah, large-scale immigration mainly from Russia. First Zionist Congress by Theodor Herzl in Basel, Switzerland, 1897. Second Aliyah, mainly from Russia and Poland. 1909, first kibbutz, Degania, first modern Jewish city, Tel Aviv. 1917, right, 1517 was the Ottoman rule. 1917 is the end of 400 years of the Ottoman rule. And the British take over. And British Foreign Minister Balfour pledges support for establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. 1919 to 23, third Aliyah, mainly from Russia and Ukraine. 1920, Histadrut is founded. 1921, first Moshav. 1922, British granted the mandate for Palestine by League of Nations. Transjordan set up on 3/4 of the area. Keep that in mind, right? Of the original area that had been part of the Balfour Declaration, 3/4 of that area became Transjordan, became Jordan as we know it today, leaving 1/4 for the Jewish national home, Jewish agency established. Return the page. 1924, Technion. 1924 to 32, fourth Aliyah, mainly from Poland. 25, Hebrew U. 1929, the Hebron Jews massacred by Arabs. Keep in mind, there was no state of Israel. There was no taking over the West Bank. All of the reasons that are given there, the only reason is the Arabs wanted to massacre the Jews. How dare there be a Jewish presence amongst us? And the British tolerated it.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, fifth Aliyah, mainly from Germany, 1936, anti-Jewish riots instigated by Arabs, 1939, Jewish immigration severely limited by the British White Paper, 39 to 45, World War II, Holocaust. 47, UN proposes the establishment of Arab and Jewish states in the land of Israel. So we're going to take that 1/4 of the original land and split that. The Jews accepted it. Arabs did not. Okay, and we'll see 1948, end of British mandate, 14th of May. State of Israel proclaimed, 14th of May. What happened the very next day? Israel invaded by 5 Arab states. War of Independence, May 1948 to July of 1949, IDF established.
Due respect, the Balfour Declaration is left out of this.
No, you missed it. It was there.
Where is it?
It was there, 1917. Okay. So in terms of the Jews' connection to the land of Israel, right, it is a very rich 3,000 years saga. Very rich 3,000 years of history of Jews constantly making their way back to their ancestral land, the indigenous people returning home. Right? Now, it's always funny when people say, well, the Jews have no real connection to the land of Israel. They call us Jews, but claim we don't have a connection to the land of Israel. Well, where does the word Jew come from? Right? In other words, you Frenchman, you have no connection to France. And Mr. Englishman, you've got no connection to England. Well, that's similar to saying you Jew have no connection to the land of Israel. Why is that? So the name Jew, we used to be known as Hebrews or Israelites. According to the dictionary, Jew, etymology, Middle English from Anglo-French, Jew, from Latin, Judaeus, from Greek, I won't even try that one, from Hebrew, Yehudi, from Yehudah, Judah, Jewish kingdom of Yehudah. We're called Jews because first of all, we descend, not all of us, but from the tribe of Judah, but the land was called Judah, meaning when the kingdom split by King Solomon's son Rehavam, it split into 2 kingdoms. The kingdom of Judah, because the Jewish kings were from the lineage of Judah, from Yehudah. So that area was called Judah, and the rest of it was called the kingdom. So we had the kingdom Malchut Yehuda and Malchut Yisroel, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. Terms Jew, Jewish, Judaism refer to our origins in the land of Israel, Judea, Yehuda. Right? So the very name Jew is because of our connection to Judah. The reason it got the name Palestine was to try to de-Judaize the name of the area. Hebrew, of course, is the language which originated in the land of Israel and the language of most archaeological artifacts from the land of Israel are in Hebrew. Okay. So that is 3,000 years. Those are our names. Okay? Let's look at the ongoing Jewish connection to the land of Israel. All right? And we mentioned last week, we mentioned at the Pesach Seder, Hashata, Hacha. Now we are here. Lashana Haba, next year we should be in the land of Israel, and many other such connections. Every wedding ceremony, number 1, 3:1, right? Code of Jewish law that we saw before was written by Rav Yosef Karo in Tzvat. That was, we had the year 1564 on our chart above. That's the Code of Jewish Law written by Rav Yosef Karo. Orach Chaim, chapter 560, he writes, and when the groom marries a bride, take ashes and place them on his head in the place where the tefillin rest. That is a custom that some do, not all do. But the next point written by the Ramah is something that is just a part and parcel of a Jewish marriage ceremony. There are places where they are accustomed to breaking a cup during the wedding ceremony in order to remember Jerusalem, as it is said, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, tishkach yemini, if I forget you, O Jerusalem, I should forget my right hand. Tidbak lashoni lechiki, my tongue should cling to my palate. Im lo eskarechi, if I will not remember you. Im lo ala et Yerushalayim, if I do not raise up Jerusalem. Al rosh simchati, over the height of my joyfulness. And even though at wedding ceremonies, the breaking of the glass often leads into an uproarious da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, and that's why more recently we actually sing Im eshkachech Yerushalayim under the chuppah to make sure that we are setting the tone properly. And then we break the glass, and then all heck breaks loose. But that point is we're singing, amazing, amazing, under the chuppah, the most joyous time for parents, for grandparents, for groom and bride, for family. At that most joyous time, we stop, we pause, and we sing in a somewhat mournful tune, If I Will Forget You, Yerushalayim, that Jerusalem must be lifted up above all of our joyfulness. Other halachic applications, priorities in tzedakah, in charity. Once again, Code of Jewish Law. This is in Yoredeah, chapter 251. Again, Rav Yosef Karo, written in the 1500s in Tzfat. Not only a parent or a child, but any relative should be given preference to a stranger when it comes to distributing your charity. The poor of one's own house has precedence over the poor of the city at large. The poor of one's own city over the poor of other cities. The poor that dwell in the Holy Land take precedence over those that dwell in other lands. Special blessing after eating the fruit or grain products of the land. Not only if you're eating the Jaffa fruit that comes from the land of Israel, but any of those 7 species through which the land of Israel is praised. So there is a special blessing, meaning I have an orange and I'm making my after blessing. It's a very short, simple after blessing. I have a fig, a pomegranate, a grape, an olive, right? All of those, the fruits which the land of Israel is praised through them, then already I've got a special after blessing that is said. Let's take a look. That comes from the pasuk in Deuteronomy, Devarim. For the Lord your God brings you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat, barley, and vines. Vines are grapes, fig trees, pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey. The honey here is not referring to bees' honey. Rather, what is it referring to? Date honey. Those are our 7 species. So we have 2 grains. We've got the wheat and the barley. And then we have 5 fruits. We have grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. Grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. So if a person has any of those, then as we'll see right now, there is a whole special blessing that is said, not the short, simple borei nefashot. It's on the bottom of the second page, I believe, still. Yeah, the bottom of the second page, right? Not the simple one that is said after anything or everything else. I would say, and that's a very short. Borei nefashot, you've created people, rabot, many, the chesunan, and things that were lacking. For everything that you've created, we thank you, God. That's the after blessing for that. If you go out for a big meal, I visited my son when he was in Detroit. Took me out for a big steak meal. I didn't want the bread, right? So I had this massive steak and vegetables and this and that. And afterwards, you feel guilty. You just make a borei nefashot. You just make this short little after blessing, right? Because it doesn't matter how much you're eating or what you eat, right? It matters, is what you are eating connected to the land of Israel or not? Once it is connected, even though these grapes were not gotten from the land of Israel, but those are fruits that the land of Israel is praised by. Therefore, we have our bracha me'ein shalosh, as it's called. And let's go through it. Blessed are you, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Lord, our King, King of the universe. For, and it depends what it is. If it's grains, sustenance and nourishment. Ala michal kakala. If it's wine or grape juice, ala gefen, v'al priya gefen. On the grapes and on the fruits of the grapes. If it's the other 4, it's wine or grape juice. If it's just grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, or dates, we thank God for the tree and for the fruit of the tree. And then we say, for the produce of the field and for the precious, good, and spacious land, which you have graciously given as a heritage to our ancestors, to eat of its fruit, to be satiated with its goodness. Have mercy, Hashem, on God and Israel, your people, and Jerusalem, your city, and Zion, the abode of your glory, on your altar and on your temple. Rebuild Jerusalem, the holy city, speedily in our days, and bring us up to it and make us rejoice in it. And we will bless you in holiness and purity. For you, Lord, are good and do good to all. And we offer thanks to you for the land and for the sustenance, fruit of the vine, fruits, right? Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you, Hashem, for all of these things. So that is the moment we come to the fruits or the grains of, again, not necessarily from Israel, but that Israel is praised by those fruits or grains, then our tefillah, our prayer, no matter where we are in the world, is focused on Israel, on the return to the land, on the rebuilding of the temple. Now that I said is called the bracha me'ein shalosh. They call it the trifaceted blessing. What it does is it takes from the first 3 blessings that we say in our full grace after meals, our full birkat hamazon, after having a bread meal, and it extracts me'ein, a little bit of the shalosh of each of those blessings. When we are actually having a bread meal, then the second blessing is all about the land of Israel. What do we say? No de l'cha Hashem Elokeinu. We thank you, Hashem. Al eretz chemda tova urachava she'inchalta lavotenu. For having given a beautiful, good, spacious land to our fathers as a heritage. For having taken us out, Lord our God, from the land of Egypt, redeemed us from the house of slavery, the covenant which you sealed on our flesh, that's Brit Milah, circumcision, for the Torah which you have taught us, for your statutes that was made known to us, for the life, grace, kindness you have bestowed on us, and for the food with which you sustain us at all times. For everything, Lord our God, we thank and bless you. Be thy name constantly blessed by all forever, as it is written, V'achalta, v'savata, uveirachta. You will eat, you will be satisfied, you will bless Hashem Elokecha al haaretz hatova asher natan lach, for the good land that he has given you. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, al haaretz v'al hamazon, for the land and for the food. Once again, we're having a bread meal. The entire second blessing is dedicated to the land. I remember Lee Weissman sharing with me that when he had some Muslims over for a meal, and then afterwards, right, so they had Birkat HaMazon, benching, and so they were curiously looking through our bencher, our after blessings book, right, and they were really hit by, wow, all this mention of the land of Israel. Right, that's the second blessing we just did. The third blessing is about the building of Jerusalem and the building of the temple. Yeah, it's great that we're a startup nation, but that's not our claim to the land. Right, that is an ode to the resilience and to the resourcefulness of the Jewish people. But that's not what we're about. That's not our claim. Famously, number 5, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, Libi b'mizrach, my heart is in the east, but I in the uttermost west. How can I find savor in food? How shall it be sweet to me? How shall I render my vows and my bonds while yet Zion lieth beneath the fetter of Edom, the chains of Edom, and I in Arab chains? A light thing, an easy thing would it seem to me to leave all the good things of Spain, seeing how precious in my eyes to behold the dust of the desolate sanctuary. I'll leave all the precious behind to see the ruins of the Beit HaMikdash. Tzion halo tish ali lishlom asirayich, very, very famous line. Zion, right? Halo tish ali, do you not ask? Lishlom asirayich, about the welfare of your captives, the few who are left. I cry out like the jackals when I think of their grief, but dreaming of the end of their captivity, I am like a harp for your songs. Right? That's a beautiful, beautiful, well-known poem from Yehuda Halevi. Right? And we know, right, Tehillim, all of Psalms is replete with that. Before every festive meal, we sing Shir Hamalot, V'shuv Hashem Eshiva Tzim. When God will bring back the remnants of Zion, Hayinu K'cholmim, we'll be like dreamers. Right? I always say, we can't take for granted that we are living the dream come true. We who were born into a land of Israel, the state of Israel, this had been a dream for thousands of years, and we are living the dream. Number 6, burial in Israel. Right? I'd be curious to know, right? Is that what happens with other peoples? Right? Are people being shipped by plane back to Greece or back to Italy or back to, right, for their burial, right? But there are Kohanim who have special restrictions about being in contact or being in the proximity of a dead body who don't fly El Al for that reason, because El Al often is transporting bodies. Now, it's done in a halachic manner that a Kohen will not be compromised by being right in the passenger section of the plane, and where the bodies are stored under the plane is separated, and therefore it's not considered that it spreads there. But nevertheless, there are many Kohanim just don't want to fly if there will be bodies on the plane. But for El Al, that is something that they are often asked to do, and many people, choose to have their burial. Their burial should be in the land of Israel. Yes, Yehuda.
Technically, as you mentioned, I think this morning or maybe a few days ago, that the tumor goes up. So would that be like the tumor going up then?
Correct. Unless, as we learned in the morning, though, remember, if there's a buffer of a tefach of open space, then it's contained under that covering and will not go up to the next level. So they make sure that there is that buffer in that section there. So therefore, the tumor is in that section, but does not ascend to where the passengers are. Yes, Leah.
I was wondering, isn't the main reason that people want to be buried in Israel is Chazonat Tzavot Hayeveshot?
Is what?
The Chazonat Tzavot Hayeveshot, I don't know how to say it in English.
Oh.
It comes out and,
correct. So let's see right now. Yeah.
Only people that are buried in Israel, right?
Well, yes and no, right? So there was the famous Chazon Yecheskel of the bones that came back to life, right? And well, let's see right now, right? The Gemara Talmud, this is number 6 there, Ketubot 111a, Rav Anan said, anyone buried in the land of Israel considers if he were buried beneath the altar. It is written here, an altar of earth you shall make for me. And it's written there, his land, Admato, V'chiper Admato, Amo. The land will atone for his people. Related to this, once again, Code of Jewish Law. That's what we saw in the 1500s of Yosef Karo in Sfat. Related to this is the custom of placing some earth from Israel in the coffin if buried outside of Israel. Yeah. So when Jacob died in Egypt, so he asked his son Joseph, to swear to him that he would bring his body to Israel for burial. Rashi there gives 3 reasons why he asked for this. Reason number 1, when he came to Egypt, that is when the famine eased. And therefore, the Egyptians held him in almost God-like esteem. And he was afraid that they would start to worship his burial place. He did not want to be a place of idolatry, of worshiping of a person. So that's one reason. Second reason Rashi gives is that he knew the plagues would eventually come, and the land would turn, and the earth would turn to Kenim, to lice. Did not want to be there for that. Thirdly, for Tchiat HaMeitim, at the time of the ultimate reward, which is the time of the resuscitation of those who have died, so that everyone needs to get to Israel. So those who are in Israel, they're there already. Otherwise, there is a difficult journey that the body needs to undergo in order to get there to Israel. Yes, so that I think relates to what you had said about the Tchiat HaMeitim, that the point of the resuscitation, that is where people would want to be there. Yeah. It's interesting, even on just a very practical level. If someone's kids are scattered all around different states or all around the world, so the one place where everyone gets to at certain points is Israel. That is the center point where everyone gets to at different points. Not necessarily to live there, but certainly to visit there. And yeah. Lastly, number 7. Oops, sorry about that. the 3 weeks, and the fasts. This is from Maimonides, Mishnah Torah, but also is in the code of Jewish law. Rambam, Maimonides writes, there are days when the entire Jewish people fast because of the calamities that occurred to them then. And we fast in order to arouse the hearts and initiate them in the paths of repentance, right? A fast day, it's not simply about fasting, but it's supposed to be to diminish a little bit our physical strength and allow us to focus more on the spiritual. These days are the following: the 3rd of Tishrei. This is the day on which Gedaliah ben Achikam was slain, and the ember of Israel that remained was extinguished, causing their exile to become complete. This is after the destruction of the temple. There was a remnant of Jews remained, and the Romans appointed Gedaliah ben Achikam to be the leader, and someone came, a Jewish person was put up to it by the nations around, and he killed Gedaliah. That's Tzom Gedaliah, right after Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, that caused those who had been there to flee. The 10th of Tevet, the day Nebuchadnezzar, the wicked king of Babylon, camped against Jerusalem and placed the city under siege. The 17th of Tammuz, the walls of Jerusalem were breached in the war leading to the destruction of the Second Temple. Right? All of these are the only fast day that we have that is not directly related to Jerusalem is true, but only rabbinic fast day that's not directly linked to Jerusalem is Purim, Tanis Esther, right? Tanis Esther. But all the other fast days that we have, rabbinic fast days, good point, Steve, are all related to Jerusalem. And of course, on the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, 5 tragedies occurred. It was decreed the Jews in the desert would not enter Israel. We heard the slanderous report of the spies, took it to heart, and cried needlessly that night. The first and second temples were destroyed on that date of 9th of Av. A large city named Beitar was captured, and the Jews were murdered there. On that day designated for retribution, the wicked Tinis Rufus plowed the site of the temple and its surrounding, fulfilling the prophecy of Micha, Tzion kasadeh techarash. Tzion will be plowed like a field. Therefore, in addition to all of these halachot that we have, laws of fasting on those days, we have a general, when the month of Av enters, we reduce our joy. Okay, so conclusions, as we've seen, we have maintained a presence in Israel since antiquity to modern times. Independent Jewish states exist in Israel for over 1,000 years, well before the modern state of Israel. We have strived to live in Israel, and there has been aliyah throughout our history. Jews commemorate the temple, Jerusalem, the land of Israel, in many varied customs, laws, and rituals. Our name, our language are linked to Israel, and we have nurtured and preserved a love and longing for the land of Israel through over 2,000 years of exile that has culminated in the creation of the state of Israel. Right? And that's so key. It didn't all start in 1948. 1948 was a crowning, a culmination of thousands of years. I would urge you to take this, keep this, and have this. Have this as a reference. This timeline is very, very important to know, and to know for ourselves, to share with others. Right? If anybody would like this in an email form, so that you could forward it to others, share with others, just send me an email, and I will respond as quickly as I can with that attachment. Know this, recognize this, feel this, and be proud of this. Yes, John.
Getting back to source Roman numeral 3, number 2.
Yes.
It's a little ambiguous here. The poor that dwell in the Holy Land take a presence over those that dwell in other lands.
Mm-hmm.
So if
but not over your family or your city.
Okay, because That's what.
Yeah.
They might be dwelling in other lands. So.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
the month of Av, we reduce our joy when it enters, but then by Tilo Av we're okay.
Yes, but even then, for the whole month of Av, if you're having a court case coming up, best to not have it in the month of Av.
But then marriages are like a big deal for Tibah.
Yeah, well, during the 3 weeks we can't have marriages, so that's why after Tisha B'Av, that is when it becomes open marriage season. Yeah, and
So
that
is it less suspicious to have that marriage on Tibah?
No, it's not less suspicious at all. Yeah. Okay, my friends, we will call it over here. Yeshikoach, everybody. Next week we will have part 3 of this series, but then we continue on Thursdays with other topics also. So as most of you know, so yeah, look forward.
You're very organized, and I'm always impressed by that.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, everyone. Good
Whatever
questions.
you prepare has all the sources.
I try to be this. I mean, they sent me about 8 pages, and I kind of condensed into what I thought would work for us. But this is my material. And to be very honest, typically my lunch and learn materials are the actual sources are repackaged. There's the Morasha, nothing to do with the school that used to be here in Orange County. The Morasha Institute, which puts out great stuff, and there's Rabbi Jachter, who puts out great stuff, and there also is Rabbi Josh, from YU, who puts out great stuff. So I'm a good repackager. Yeah. Now he doesn't like to re-gift. I re-gift. What can I say? Okay.
The Jordanians blew up the Ramban.
All the shuls in the old city, which have been ancient synagogues. When the Jordanians captured in 49, right, and the old city fell, right, and the Jewish quarter fell to them, they went about destroying and also taking tombstones from Har Zaitim, from Mount Olive Cemetery, and using them for construction, for urinals, doing whatever they could do to denigrate and desecrate. Yeah, that was
They
the.
have changed there, haven't they? They certainly have changed, haven't they?
The Jordanians?
Yes.
Well, it's interesting. The country of Jordan, the government of Jordan, is has a peace treaty with Israel, right? The Jordanian people are, as a whole, are not similar to the Egyptians, right? There's peace between the government of Egypt and the government of Israel, but the people of Egypt also are, for the most part, are not all that friendly.
Antagonistic.
Yeah, we would say antagonistic.
Jordan had
Yeah.
no choice.
Yeah.
They owed a ton of money, which was forgiven.
Yeah. Look at Syria today. We hear the news of Syria today, right? Syria is thinking of joining the Abraham Accords, right? Not out of any love for Israel, but that way America will forgive certain debts and will take off sanctions and
Whatever it takes.
whatever it takes. Yeah,
It's
until.
better than a hot war.
Yeah, I agree. And look,
Good for us.
ultimately, it's going to be that Yakiru Viedu Kol Yoshvei Tevel, all the inhabitants of the world will know and recognize Hashem, will know and recognize the role that we play. And until then, right, it's going to be uneasy. And I think a big part of that uneasiness is to make sure that we stay true to our mission and don't forget who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. Right? When the Jew tries to forget, the non-Jew reminds us. That's been the process that we've been going through. Yes, Mr. Dove.
Why the candy jujube beans are not kosher?
That's an excellent question, Dove. Maybe we'll dedicate a lunch and learn to that at some time in the future. Okay. On that note, always count on Dove. Okay, my friends.
Wait, the doctor had a question.
Oh, yes, doctor. Sorry.
In other words, I'm just trying to figure out with the patriarchs when Esau was eliminated and why and how. In other words, he was Jacob's brother. He's fully Jewish.
Yeah. Yeah. So the verses speak about that Avram was told, through your zera, through your descendants, the name will be called. Right? Avram had two descendants, Yishmael and Yitzchak. But Yitzchak, when Yishmael was born, and Avraham was Hashem told him, your seed will not be called. You will have a child through Sarah. Your seed, your zera, will not be called through Yishmael.
Esau was the grandchild.
Right. Esav, right? So once again, the blessings of Avraham, which was land and nationhood, that was given by Avram to Yitzchak, and that was given by Yitzchak to Yaakov, to Jacob.
One could say that Esau had it stolen from him.
So if you look carefully there were two different blessings. There was the blessing that he intended for Esav, and that was the dew of the heavens and the fat of the earth. That was not nationhood. That was not the land of Israel. When Jacob took those blessings, okay? Then before Jacob is being sent away, right, because Esav wants to kill him, then Isaac calls in Jacob and gives him that blessing of land and nationhood. So that blessing was always meant to be for Jacob. The blessings of the fat of this earth and the dew of the heavens, that was Isaac intended to give that to Esav. In his mind, this could be a perfect partnership of Esav and Yaakov working together, one in the material realm, the other one in the spiritual realm. Rivka saw through that. Rivka had also been told through a prophecy that the younger one was meant to get this ascendancy, and therefore she engineered Yaakov getting those blessings. But whatever happened with that first blessing, that was not land and nationhood. That was the comforts and the bounty of this world. But even after having given that blessing to Jacob, which he had intended for Esav, he then calls in Jacob, right? Take a very quick look at the very end of Vayetze is when he goes out afterwards.
Shlach.
No. Shlach is no.
No, too far.
Toldos, the very end of the Parsha of Toldos, that's where we see that even after that first bracha that had been meant for Esav and went to Yaakov, there the blessing is given to Yaakov. Yeah, that's a good point you bring up, and it's an important thing to understand.
Esau certainly went down a bad path.
Yeah.
Partly because of the blessings. By your sword you shall live.
Yeah.
I think that should have been rewarded.
All right, my friends.
Is your grandpa?
Percy Bruce, yes.
May his Neshama have an
Okay, be well,
Amen.
Marcia. Rick's there. Hey, Rick. Good. And Linda, good to see you.